that kid is back in those air vents. Not a year goes by, man, not a year, that I don't see some HoloNet feed of some Padawan getting stuck because his Jedi Master didn't teach him to fear and respect those air vents. Welcome back, Rebels fans, to the Rebels Recap right here on Positively Nerdy. The 5th episode, Breaking Ranks, features Ezra going undercover in the Imperial Academy to steal valuable information to help the Rebels stop a dangerous Imperial shipment. The Academy sure starts training their cadets at a very young age. I wonder why that is. Ezra and all of the other cadets spend all of their time, seemingly, in something out of Ender's Game. Actually, what it really reminds me of is the cube death trap contraption thing from the Bounty Hunter arc when Obi-Wan went undercover as Ben, whatever his name was, and we got to see Moralo Eval. Probably not a coincidence that it reminded me so much of that. Speaking of Clone Wars, how many episodes would this story have been in Star Wars The Clone Wars? At least 4. I really, and I cannot stress this enough, really like the storytelling, the pace of everything that goes on in Rebels as opposed to Star Wars The Clone Wars. Don't get me wrong, I'm not the internet. Just because something new came along doesn't mean I hate something old. But the fact that Rebels continues to just do one episode, it's half an hour, 22 minutes, whatever it is, at a time, tells a terrific story in that allotment of time, but then has that 22 minutes build on the next 22 minutes, which builds on the next 22 minutes, is a much more effective way of storytelling, in my opinion. And we have the same crew every time. It's the same 5 characters, even Hera this time. You go, girl. And it's a great way to build the series and keep myself and every other Star Wars Rebels fans hanging on the edge of our seat for more. As I mentioned, it seems the Empire is training their cadets very young, but it appears that training might not be all that's going on here. It looks like they're going after Force-sensitive kids. Which, if you're the Empire, we've talked about this before, they're desperate. They want to get their hands on as many Force-sensitives as possible to either use them or, more likely, get rid of them. And it leads to a really cool examination of the hierarchy of the Empire, because the 2 main Imperial officers running the training academy, we actually got to meet back in Spark of Rebellion, the debut episode. It's kind of the bigger, gruff guy and the really small, gaunt, skeleton-looking guy that were harassing the Godel. Is that what they're called? He had the fruit, and Ezra helped him, and then Ezra took all his fruit. And so they're running the Imperial training for the cadets. And then we have Kallus is there, who doesn't have a whole lot to do other than not be interested in pod racing parts, but who wouldn't be interested in pod racing parts? And our Imperial officers and Kallus and everybody reports to the Inquisitor and lets them know that there are certain cadets that meet your requirements. I don't think they really necessarily know that it's a Force-sensitive type situation. Obviously the Inquisitor does, but the Imperials are probably on a need-to-know basis, and other than maybe Kallus, they probably don't need to know. And of course Ezra, along with another cadet actually, fit the requirements and the Inquisitor is called in. Meanwhile, Ezra is getting pretty close to accomplishing his mission and actually meets another young cadet along the way, Zare, who becomes a bit of an ally. Now, it makes perfect sense that there'd be a lot of people really upset at the Empire. You'd find no shortage of allies if you're a rebel. You just need someone with the courage to stand up, and apparently Zare is one of those people. But it might seem a little bit odd that there are so many young people rebelling against the Empire. Alright, maybe it doesn't seem that crazy. After all, young people rebel, that's what they do. And it was a kid who blew up the first Death Star. And at this point, I feel obligated to mention the role Bears played in the destruction of the second Death Star and the eventual fall of the Empire. So I guess this is just a sign of things to come for the Empire. So what's everybody else doing? Well, Zeb and Sabine are in support just outside of the Imperial facility. Chopper has actually infiltrated the Imperial facility. They basically spray painted him black, and now he's an Imperial droid. I thought that was awesome. Kanan and Hera, who, as I mentioned, gets a little bit more to do in this episode, so good for her, are after a convoy carrying a rare crystal. Ezra is in the Imperial Academy to find the coordinates of this convoy so they can destroy the crystal because, quote, nothing good can come from the convoy. Now, it's called the Kyber Crystal. I don't know what a Kyber Crystal is. Sorry. I'm sure there's someone out there who knows all about it, but I don't. I'm left to imply based on what they tell me in the episode. And what they tell me in the episode, based on the color and the shockwave it produces when ignited, that thing was probably headed to the construction of the Death Star. A nice subtle touch, or if you're more knowledgeable than me, maybe it's not so subtle. But either way, it's pretty cool. So, happy endings all around. Ezra gets the coordinates, he escapes. Kanan and Hera blow up the Imperial shipment, destroying the crystal, probably on its way to the Death Star. Everything's bright and happy. Zaire actually stays behind. He pretends to be stopping Ezra. We know at this point that he and Ezra are good buddies, but he's going to stay behind because 1, he needs to find his sister, and 2, he gets to be a mole on the inside of the Imperial Academy. Pretty cool idea. Except, I don't think the Inquisitor's buying it. I think the Inquisitor is a lot intimidating and a lot more scary in this episode than he was in the previous episode of Rise of the Old Masters. And if that's not the mark of a great villain, to be scary when all he's doing is calmly talking to another person, I don't know what is. So there you have it, Breaking Ranks. It was fun, and we learned something. Win-win. Don't forget to tell me what you thought of the episode in the comments below, and be sure and check out the rest of Positively Nerdy through Facebook, Twitter, and of course over at PositivelyNerdy.com. So until next time, Rebels fans, stay out of those air vents!